Hi guys, we're going to start the last day of our notes on absolute value inequalities. So these are the honors topics. So let's go ahead and get started. So vocab, absolute value is distance from zero, which is always positive. Just FYI, this is the third time I've started these notes and I always get interrupted. So I'm just going to go super fast. So if I'm going too fast, pause the video, rewind the video, whatever you need to do. Okay? So there's a couple steps, like 3 steps we need to do for solving absolute value inequalities, and they are isolate the absolute value. Just like with equations, we need the absolute value to be by itself, okay? Then, once it is done, we are going to create our 2 inequalities. Now, when we have 2 inequalities, that is called a compound inequality. And what you need for a compound inequality is a word, either and or. So here's how we figure it out. If the inequality sign is less than or equal to, the absolute value represents a compound inequality with the word and. And the way you can remember that is less than. Okay? If the inequality sign is greater than or equal to, the absolute value represents a compound inequality with the word or. And here's how you can remember it. Greater or. Okay? Now that you understand which word you're going to be using for your compound inequality, you can go ahead and split it and solve it. Okay? To split your inequality, it's a little bit different than the equation part. Okay? Your first inequality is going to be whatever is in the absolute value with the same sign, same number. Just write it as is. The second one, not only do we have to change the number to be the opposite sign, but we also have to flip the inequality sign. Okay? So your 2 inequalities are going to be made from that, and then once you have your 2 inequalities, you would just solve like a normal compound inequality. Alright, so let's try example 1 where we go ahead and write the compound inequality. We're not going to solve it, we're just going to rewrite it as a compound inequality. So A, we have 8 minus x is less than 2. So absolute value is by itself. So that means we can look and figure out which word we're going to do, and we can go ahead and split it. So it is a less than symbol, which means we're going to use the word and. Okay? So we go ahead and split our inequality into 2 inequalities now. The first one's going to be the 8 minus x, and we're going to keep the sign and keep the number the same. So it's just 8 minus x is less than 2. The other one, we're going to keep the 8 minus x part, and we are going to flip this sign to be greater than and change this to be a negative 2. And that's it. That is our compound inequality. So if we needed to, we would go ahead and solve that. Here, we go and split it. The absolute value is by itself, so we can go ahead and try to split it now. It's a greater symbol, so we're going to use the word or. And now we can write our 2 inequalities. First one, keep. So we keep it all the same. Second one, keep, flip, change. So it becomes 1 minus 2a is less than negative 11. Okay? And then that would be our compound inequality. So you guys are going to try this one on your own. When you are done, you can start the video up again, play it, continue it, whatever you need to do, or you can come back to it at the end and do it then. But we'll go over it next time in class. There we go. Now, for example 2, we are going to go ahead and solve this one. Okay? Now, before we can solve it, it's important to know that you have to have your absolute value on the left side in order to figure out what kind of word you're going to have. So right now it's on the right. I need to flip this whole thing around so it's on the left. So I flip the whole thing, including the inequality sign. So now I have the absolute value of negative 3k minus 2 is greater than 2. So I can, and since the absolute value is by itself, I can figure out how to split it. So I come up with the 2 inequalities. It's a greater symbol, so it's going to be the word or in between. So the first one, it's going to keep. So I keep it all. The second one, I'm going to keep, flip, and change. So I'm going to flip the sign and change this to be a negative 2. Okay, now that I have my compound, I just solve like a normal compound inequality. So here I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So now I have negative 3k divided by 4. divide everything by -3. K is less than -4/3. Here I go ahead and add 2 to both sides, and I get -3. There we go. -3 is less than 0. Divide both sides by -3. So, and remember, I'm dividing these by -3, so I have to flip my signs when I do this. Okay? So what I get is K is greater than 0. Bring down my OR for my final answer, and then that is my solution set. That's where I can find the solutions. If I use those two, I can find my solutions to this inequality. Okay? So now you guys are going to try this one on your own. Okay? All right, so now a couple of what-if scenarios. What is happening? I just want to scroll. Now, unlike equations we said if it equaled a negative, excuse me, I'm going to cough. Earbuds, watch out for earplugs. Sorry, I didn't want to be too loud. If we said for an equation, if it equaled a negative, it was no solution. Done. With inequalities, though, it's a little bit different. So we can't make that judgment just based on a negative. Okay? So what if we had the absolute value of 2x minus 3 is less than -4? Well, we ask ourselves, can an absolute value be less than a negative number? Well, we said the absolute value has to be positive, so can a positive number be less than a negative number? No, it's not possible. So when the absolute value is less than a negative, this means the answer is no solution. Let's look at another one. If we had the absolute value of 2x minus 3 is greater than a negative number, well, can an absolute value be greater than a negative? Yes, that is possible. So when that happens, we need to create the compound inequality and solve for it. Okay? So just because you automatically see a negative does not mean it's no solution. You have to look a little bit deeper at the inequality. Okay? Let's try some examples. We're going to solve and then graph them. Okay? So here, the absolute value is by itself. It's a less than symbol. So I can go ahead and split it and just use the word and. The first one, we just go ahead and keep it all the same, just lose the absolute values. The second one, we have to flip the sign and change it to be a -13. So now I go ahead and solve. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. I get -3m is less than or equal to 5. Divide it by -3 on both sides. And I get m is less than or equal to, oh wait, this should be greater than or equal to, shouldn't it? Shoot, did I mess it up? I think I did, which means I probably messed up everything on this problem. So this should be greater than because I divided by a negative. Okay. Now I'm going to subtract 8 from these two sides. I get -3m is greater than or equal to -21, which I'm not going to do that one yet. Then I divide everything by -3, and I should have x is less than or equal to -7. Is this a funky one? I think this one might be a funky one. I want to make sure I did it right. Oh, this shouldn't be a -7. That's why. That should be a +7. Ooh, I messed this up real good. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. So I'm going to do this right now. -5/3. Okay. And +7. All right. So I need to be greater than -5/3 or equal to. So I'm going to have a closed circle. I need to be less than or equal to 7. So I'm going to have a closed circle. And means that they should be connected like this. Okay? And the word and should be in there. So this would be my graph. All right? All right, let's try this other one. Hopefully I didn't make as much of a mistake. I gotta fix that. So we have 4r minus 4 is greater than 440. Absolute values by itself, so I can split it. It's a great OR, so it's going to be an OR statement. So first one, keep everything the same, just lose the absolute value symbol. Second one, flip the sign, change it to -40. Good to go. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve it. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides first. I can do it to all sides. I did it. So now I have 4/3, 4r is greater than 44. 4r is less than -36. Divide everything by 4. Just doing them at the same time right now. So this one becomes r is greater than 11, or r is less than -9. So I can go ahead and put that on my graph now. I'm going to start with -9 down here and put an 11 over here. So greater than 11 would be a open circle on 11 and pointing to everything greater. Where's my everything greater stuff? Goodness. So I'm pointing to everything greater. Woo! Gotta do a lot of stuff to change. Then on -9, I would have an open circle and point to everything less than. Okay, and those would be my graphs. Finally, you guys are going to try this one on your own. Okay, and our last one, we just have to solve graph and write our answer in set builder notation. So this one, the absolute value is not by itself. So the first thing I need to do is subtract 5 from both sides. That'll give me 3 times the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is less than 9. Now I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3. And I get the absolute value is 2x minus 1 is less than 3. Now that the absolute value is by itself, I can split it. Okay? I cannot do that beforehand. I cannot figure out if it's an and or an or statement before the absolute value is by itself. So here I have a less than symbol, so it's going to be an and statement. So I go ahead and split it. Maybe. There we go. With the and in between. The first one, keep everything the same. The second one, flip the sign, change the number. Okay? So now I can go ahead and solve them. First, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I get 2x is less than 4. Divide it by 2. X is less than 2. And over here, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. I get 2x is greater than -2. Divide everything by 2. X is greater than -1. So in Set Builder, there's 2 ways you can write it. You can write it with the word and, just like this, where you have the x's in front, put the smaller number first, and the bigger number. Or you can merge it. So if you wanted to merge it, you would get x such that -1 is less than x, which is less than 2. Okay? Now for your graph, you would go ahead and number your number line, or just put the important ones on there, which I did. There. So because they're both not equal to, they're going to be open circles. Oh, there. They're supposed to be open circles. Oh, goodness. Delete. I really messed up this thing. Delete. Delete. Open circles. Open circle. And then I'm going to connect it because it's an and statement. It has to be between those 2 numbers. So that's it for the video. If you guys have any questions, please write them down. We will go over the try on your own and any questions you have next time. Other than that, I will see you later. Bye.